محترمو د مطبوعاتو ښاغلو او میرمنو د افغانستان او د بهرنیو میلمنو ډېر ښه راغلاست د نن پروګرام ته چې زما او د انګلستان د ډېر محترم صدر اعظم جناب ما کامرون تر مابینځ پریس کانفرنس دی ښاغلی صدر اعظم د افغانستان دوست دی او د افغانستان د بیا ودانولو او د سولې په پروسه کې خصوصا د افغانستان او پاکستان ترمنځ د روابطو د لا ښه کولو په حصه کې ډېره مرسته کړې ده څو ځلې یې کوښښ کړي په نیویارک او په لندن او بیا په انګلستان کې په چکرز کې مجلسونه جوړ کړي دي دوی نن تشریف راوړی افغانستان ته لاړل هلمند ته او د هلمند څخه د خپلو عسکرو تر لیدو وروسته کابل ته تشریف راوړی دي ما او جناب ما صدر اعظم پر ټولو قضایاو هر اړخیزې خبرې وکړې د افغانستان هغه تشویش چې افغانستان یې د سولې په پروسه کې لري خبرې وسولې او دا چې د افغانستان د سولې د پروسې څخه د بهرني لاسونو د خپلو اهدافو لپاره استفاده نه کوي خبرې وسولې او دا هم ښاغلي د انګلستان صدر اعظم ته عرض کړل چې افغانان په داسې حال کې چې د خپلې ستراتیژیک روابط څخه د دنیا سره خوشحاله دي او هڅه ورته کوي دا آرزو هم لري چې د امریکې او د ناټو سره امنیتي قرارداد د افغانستان امریکې او د ناټو د مفاداتو پر بنا جوړ کړي داسې یو امنیتي قرارداد چې په هغې کې د افغانستان دپاره سوله او امن تضمین شوی وي داسې امنیتي قرارداد چې په هغې کې د یو واحد افغانستان او د قوي مرکزي حکومت درلودونکی افغانستان تضمین پکې شوی وي او داسې یو قرارداد چې افغانستان په هغه کې قوت پیدا کړي او د ترقي او تعالی خواته ولاړ شي ما او جناب ما صدر اعظم د افغانستان او پاکستان د رابطې په باب هم خبرې وکړې او دا مو په واضح الفاظ یو د بله سره تایید کړل چې نیک رابطه د افغانستان او د پاکستان د دواړو ضرورت دی او دا چې نه به پاکستان په افغانستان کې د ستراتیژیک ډپت کوشش کوي او نه به د پاکستان خاوره د افغانستان په خلاف استعمالیږي نه به د افغانستان خاوره د دوی په خلاف استعمالیږي او د یو متقابلې ښې رابطې چې پر احترام باندې بنا وي او د دواړو حاکمیت ملي پکې تضمین وي د دې موږ غوښتونکي یو او د دې هدف لپاره کار کوو او هیله مو دا ده چې د افغانستان د سولې پروسه د ټولو هغو جوانبو د خوا چې پکې دخیل دي په رښتینې توګه همکاري ورسره وسي او تطبیق یې ګړندی او ژر شي د ښاغلي صدر اعظم د خوا د افغانستان سره ټول هغه تعهدات چې د انګلستان حکومت کړي دي پر هغو دوباره ژمنه وسوله او د انګلستان د نیکو هیلو او ارزوګانو او د ټولو هغو کوښښونو دوباره ژمنه وسوله چې دوی مخکې زموږ سره کړې وه د دوی د سفر څخه بیا هم ډېر د تشکر کوم او د دوی د کوښښونو سره چې د افغانستان سره کړي دي ډېر ډېر تشکر کوم اوس هم په دې ځل کې د دوی سفر دا و چې څنګه انګلستان وکولی شي چې هم د سولې په پروسه کې او هم د افغانستان او د پاکستان تر مابینځ د هغو مشکلاتو د رفع دپاره چې د تېرو کلونو راهیسې موجود دي د دوی هڅې کامیابي او دواړو خواو ته د نتیجې وړ شي.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I'm delighted to be back here with you in Kabul. This is a city where Britain and Afghanistan have so much vital work going on. We had very useful talks today, and we share a common goal: a secure, stable, and democratic Afghanistan. A country that is no longer a haven for terrorists, that no longer harbours threats to either of our national securities, a country where Afghans themselves are in control and building the peaceful and prosperous future that they deserve. We've discussed three key issues: our progress towards that shared vision, the challenges ahead, and the role that the United Kingdom will continue to play as a strong friend of Afghanistan after our combat troops have left. Let me say a few words on each. First, on the progress we have made. This morning, I was in Helmand province, where Afghan troops are now the lead force responsible for security in that province and for taking on the insurgents. This is the case right across the country. In each and every province and city, Afghan soldiers and Afghan police are assuming responsibility for keeping Afghanistan's 27 million citizens safe. This is a remarkable transformation. When I first came to Helmand in 2006, there were almost no Afghan forces at all. Today, there are over 340,000. These are capable, determined troops, and we're on track for them to take over full responsibility at the end of next year. But progress is not just limited to the battlefield. In Helmand, 130,000 children are now in school, including 30,000 girls, when under the Taliban there were none. 80% of the population can now get healthcare within 10 kilometers of their home. And crucially, support for the Taliban has plummeted from over 20% 2 years ago to just 5% today. And this progress is not just limited to daily life. The political process is moving forward too. Preparations are underway for next year's presidential elections, which will mark the first peaceful constitutional handover of power in living memory, and it will be a vital part, sir, of your legacy. Afghans are already registering to vote. Over 50,000 new voters have already registered, including over 10,000 women. And I believe that the Taliban, watching all this progress, are beginning to realize that they are not going to secure a role in Afghanistan's future through terror and violence, but by giving up their arms and engaging in a political process. But let me make absolutely clear, this peace process is for Afghanistan to determine. It must be Afghan-owned, it must be Afghan-led. There is no other agenda that Britain has, that America has, that any country in the West has, no other agenda other than your stability, your security, and your prosperity. That is why we wish this peace process well, but it must be your peace process, not anybody else's. Now, of course, there will be challenges ahead, and there is a lot still to be achieved. We discussed the need for a peaceful, credible election next year, in which Afghans across the country can vote freely. And, Mr. President, I welcome your commitment to a democratic succession after your second term. The forthcoming elections present an opportunity for Afghanistan to demonstrate its democratic progress, both to its own citizens and to the world. Britain stands ready to assist the Afghan government and the Independent Electoral Commission to achieve this. We are providing financial support for the process, including £4.5 million specifically targeted to increase women's participation. We will also do all we can to support an Afghan-led peace process. This will not be easy. It will take courage and conviction on both sides. There will be setbacks, but there is, I believe, a window of opportunity, and I will urge all of those who renounce violence, who respect the Constitution, who want to have a voice in the future prosperity of this country, to seize that opportunity. Finally, the President and I discussed our shared commitment to a strong partnership between our two countries beyond 2014. While our combat troops will return home, we have already committed to support and sustain the Afghan security forces with financial support long after 2014. The Afghan National Army Officer Academy, which you specifically asked Britain to take the lead in, where we will help to train the Afghan Army officers of the future. It will take its first students this autumn. And we will continue to support the vital building blocks for growth: the rule of law, the absence of corruption, the presence of property rights and strong institutions. We will maintain our development assistance and co-chair a ministerial conference next year to agree the international community's future support for Afghanistan. Finally, here in Afghanistan on Armed Forces Day, I want to pay particular tribute to the 444 British men and women who have died serving our country here in Afghanistan. I think of their family and friends, of all who've been injured, whose lives have been irrevocably changed by the role they have played here. We have paid a high price, but since British troops arrived here over a decade ago, we have dramatically reduced the terror threat emanating from this whole region. We came here to make Afghanistan safer, to make Britain safer, And together, we are achieving that. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Prime Minister.
Given the recent attack by the Taliban on your own presidential compound, how realistic is it that you will be sitting down with the Taliban anytime soon?
Ma'am, the attack that was organized near the presidential palace will not deter us from seeking peace. We've had them killing the Afghan people, but we still ask for peace. This was peanuts, comparatively speaking. Quite an irrelevant attack. We're more concerned when they attack the Afghan civilians. We're more concerned when they attack Afghan schools and children. I wish they would spend all their time attacking the presidential palace and leave the rest of the country alone.
Let me make the point, in addition, that the Afghan security forces dealt with this attack without any military assistance from others. And they dealt with it very effectively
and very promptly.
And very swiftly.
And very promptly. So I wish they would concentrate all their energies on attacking the presidential palace and leave the rest of the country alone, leave our children and women and schools alone, not kill them. Even then, we want to talk peace, because that's what we are seeking, because that's what the country needs, that's what also the Taliban need. I would ask them once again to free themselves from foreign influence, from the grips of foreign intelligence agencies, and to return to their own country in dignity and honor and work for their own people.
نقش بریتانیا در متقاعد ساختن پاکستان به مثابه دوست سنتیشان در امر تحقق پروسه صلح به نفع تامین ثبات به دو کشور افغانستان و پاکستان میخواستم بدانم و چند نکته از جناب رئیس جمهور افغانستان میخوایم بپرسم که در پروسه صلح کشورهای خارجی مانند امریکا، بریتانیا و پاکستان دخیل هستند، اما گفته میشه تلاش‌هایی وجود داره که کشورها میخواهند افغانستان یک نظام فدرال به وجود بیارن. نظر شما در این رابطه چیست؟ نکته دوم، پس از ایجاد دفتر طالبان حکومت افغانستان مذاکرات روی توافقنامه امنیتی را به حالت تعلیق درآورده بود. شما درست قبل در ویدیو کنفرانسی که با آقای باراک اوباما رئیس جمهوری ایالات متحده آمریکا داشتین صحبت‌های از تداوم مذاکرات کردین. آیا در مورد از سرگیری مذاکرات امنیتی از جانب شما با ایالات متحده آمریکا وجود داره؟ و نکته سوم، تحریک طالبان پاکستان اعلام کردند که از افتتاح دفتر طالبان در قطر استقبال میکنن. اینا ملاومه را باعث سرقمندان اعلای خود قبول دارن، یعنی برای ملاومه اونا بیعت کردن. رهبری تحریک طالبان همیشه دستور از ملاومه میگیرن در امر پیشبرد کارشون. نظر شما در این رابطه چیست؟ تشکر.
Well, perhaps I can answer my part of the question first, which is what is the role of Britain in terms of our relations with Pakistan? We have a good relationship with Pakistan. It's a long-standing relationship, and we have a very clear view, which is that it is in Pakistan's short, medium, and long-term interests to have a secure, stable, and prosperous Afghanistan with which they have a good and strong relationship. That is the sum total of what we say to Pakistan about Afghanistan. That is why I helped to put together the trilateral talks process between Britain, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and I believe that process has made some assistance in the development of good relations, but we need to keep on. We need to keep on this journey. But I think it's absolutely clear that it is in the long-term interest, short-term interest, medium-term interest of Afghanistan to have a good relationship with Pakistan and Pakistan to have a good relationship with Afghanistan. And I pay tribute to the President for his long-standing leadership and vision on this issue. And I know that he will keep up those efforts. There are always difficulties, there are always blocks in the road, but I know that the President sees past them and knows that this long-term relationship is in both countries' strong interests.
مسئله ایجاد ملک الطوایفی در افغانستان و بردن افغانستان به حکومت و نظام ضعیف، آوازهای شنیدیم و کوشش‌های را هم دیدیم از طرف بعض ممالک بیرونی. خب کوشش‌ها چون در افغانستان ملک الطوایفی خریدار نداره، بلکه در گذشته باعث بدبختی مردم افغانستان شده، ناکام شدن و از 6 ماه به این طرف می‌بینیم که کوشش‌های در جریان است که این ملک الطوایفی را از طریق طالبا و یا سپردن یکی دو جای به دست طالبا و باز از راه اینا ملک الطوایفی را بر مردم افغانستان تحمیل کنند، یک مسئله است که با دولت‌های بیرونی صحبت شده. امروز در نان چاشت با جلالت مآب صدراعظم انگلستان هم در این مورد صحبت شد. البته اینا اطمینان دادن که همچین چیزی در آجندای غرب نیست. ما از پاکستان هم آوازهای را شنیدیم و راپورهای را در این مورد داریم که اونا به راستا کوشش میکنن. نمیدانم که نفع پاکستان در این چی است، چرا که در حقیقت همچنین حالتی در افغانستان زیادتر به نقص پاکستان میشه. و قسمی که در سوال شما معلوم بود، طالبای پاکستان، تحریک طالبان پاکستان چند روز پیش اعلان کردند که اینا تابع امارت اسلامی افغانستان هستند و ملا محمد عمر خونده کلان خود میدانند. پس به این ترتیب اینا خود از پاکستان جدا کردند و خود بسته به تحریک طالبای افغانستان کردند. پس میتونن که اینا هم به دفتر قطر برن و تحریک طالبای پاکستان و طالبای افغانستان هر دو در قطر دفتر داشته باشن در یک محل و باز دولت افغانستان که چون صحبت کنم. این کوشش ها را ما شنیدیم و جرقه هایش هم دیدیم، ولی این کوشش ها به جای نمیرسه. ما آگاه هستیم و با دولت هایی که ما فکر میکنید اینجا در این مورد دست میزنن تماس هم داریم، صریح و واضح تماس داریم و اتحاد و اتفاق ملت افغانستان روزی که در دوحه کوشش شد که افغانستان صاحب دو دولت بسازن، معلوم شد که ملت افغانستان همگی یکسره خیستن و رد کردن، حتی به شمول طالب ها که اکثریتشان اونایی که وطن دوست و از این خاک هستند به ما تلفن کردن و سخت مخالفت نشان دادن. مذاکرات هنوزم در حالت تعلیق است. جلالت مآب اوباما رئیس جمهور امریکا 3 روز پیش به همراه یک ویدیو کنفرانس بسیار طولانی داشتند. در او اینها آرزو کردند که اگر پیمان امنیتی بین افغانستان و امریکا تا ماه اکتبر این سال تا 3 ماه آینده را به توافق برسیم، ما برایشان گفتیم که افغانستان شرط‌های واضح و تغییر نیافتنی در این مورد داره و صلح و امن در افغانستان است و تضمین منافع افغانستان است و یک نظام محکم مرکزی و افغانستان واحد و ثابت است. اگر این اساسات شرایط ما احترام شوند و پذیرفته شوند، یقینا که ملت افغانستان حاضر میشن که پیمان قرارداد امنیتی را با امریکا بپذیرند. در هر صورت فیصله ها از مردم افغانستان است و در این مورد لوی جرگه میشه تا لوی جرگه مردم افغانستان اگر همچین شرایطی برقرار داشته بود باز نظر بتن و در مورد قرارداد امنیتی قبول یا رد کنند.
Nick Watt from The Guardian. Mr. President, if I could just pick you up on the concerns you raised about efforts to create a federal system, is it for you a red line that the Constitution should not be changed? And what do you say to people who say that the Constitution vests too much power in the presidency, and if you're having a process of reconciliation, you need to look at that? And Prime Minister, if I could ask you, I believe this is your first visit to Afghanistan since those sort of formal opening of dialogue with the Taliban. What do you say to families of British soldiers, the 444 British soldiers who may feel that once again a British government has held talks in secret with an organisation that it asks its troops to put their lives on the line to fight, and once again, just with the IRA, you're now having talks in the open with that organisation whilst your troops, British troops, are still on the line? Thank you.
What I would say to everyone in the United Kingdom, and perhaps particularly to British forces and British forces families, is that we should be very proud of the work that British Armed Service personnel have done here in Afghanistan. We came here in 2001 with a very clear purpose, and that was to stop this country being used as a base for terrorist attacks against Britain. And we have been successful in that task. The Afghan government, with our assistance, has managed to deliver security and stability across much more of this country than was ever possible in the past, and it is no longer a haven for terrorist plotting and planning. And yes, of course, we now believe, alongside our security approach, which is about training up the Afghan army and police force, we believe, yes, there should be a political process as well. But a political process that will only succeed if those involved, in terms of the Taliban, put down their arms and stop fighting. Now, the encouraging thing about the process so far is the Taliban statement that they made was that they didn't want Afghanistan anymore to be a haven for terror. They didn't want it to be a country that caused pain to other countries in the region or in the world. So I think people would expect the Afghan government and its allies and friends to have that sort of political process. But I think above all, we should be proud and grateful for what our armed service personnel have done here. We should be very clear that any peace process has to be Afghan-owned and Afghan-led. And let me just make absolutely clear, beyond any doubt, about the timetable for British troops leaving Afghanistan. I set this out in 2010, and it has not changed. There will be no British combat troops after the end of 2014. British troops are coming home. That is happening right now. Until recently, we were in 130 different patrol bases. We're now in just over 10. By the end of the year, that will be something like 4 bases. And let me also be clear that after 2014, we have said that our contribution will be the Officer Training Academy that President Karzai asked us to establish. We have not made any other commitments, and nor have I been asked to make other commitments. Now, of course, other NATO countries may choose to do more things to help assist the Afghan forces, not in a combat role, but to assist the Afghan forces post-2014. But from everything I've heard today, the Afghan forces are doing a good job. They are highly capable, highly motivated, and they are capable of delivering security for this country.
You asked about a federal system in Afghanistan. Federalism is run quite successfully in some countries. You have it in the United States, you have it in India, you have it in Germany, and in a more liberal way in Switzerland. The Afghan experience is different. After the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan and after the years of interference from abroad and the internal incoherence in Afghanistan, it was exactly the nature of a fragmented system in Afghanistan that caused so much bloodshed and misery to the Afghan people. Therefore, the Afghan people are looking forward to a strong, unitary form of government that would deliver them the services, that would provide them the goods for a better life. Any system that is imposed on us or effort is made to be imposed on us from abroad, federalism or any other structure, the Afghan people will reject, especially an effort for federalism through delivering a province or two to the Taliban will be seen by the Afghan people as an invasion of Afghanistan, and as an effort from outside to weaken and splinter this country. Therefore, there will be a strong opposition to that. Therefore, there was that massive, strong reaction to the manner in which the Taliban office in Doha was inaugurated. So our message is clear. A change in the constitution is the work of the Afghan people. They are empowered to bring any changes in the constitution that they want. The Taliban, once they've joined the peace process, once they've begun to talk to their Afghan brothers and sisters, if they have any demands, they should put them forward. And then there is a mechanism provided in our constitution for amendments in the constitution through the Afghan law Jarga. And the Afghan law Jarga can look at all those questions as the right given by the Afghan people to it. The power to the president of Afghanistan, the constitution, well, it's a presidential system. Therefore, the president has powers.
What specific actions should be taken in order for negotiations to begin? What does Taliban want? What does the US want? And what does the Afghan government want? And also, what does the US, Taliban, and Qatar government want the Afghan government to do?
Well, sir, who is this question asked from? Prime Minister or myself? All right. Well, we know what we want, the Afghan people, from the peace talks. We want peace and stability in Afghanistan. We want the return of the Taliban back to their country. We want them to be part of this society and this policy and to work for their own country. That's our desire, and we hope the peace talks will begin as soon as possible. As to what the Taliban want, we will hear from them once the peace talks start. Our desire is for a unified and strong, peaceful Afghanistan. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Prime Minister.